Call this entry on the nose because this is precisely what it is all about. Consider how important breathing is for our survival. When you think about the phrase last breath, which also translates into lots of different languages, which means that end of life is related to our breath. And it is an autonomous function. We don't have to remember how to breathe. It automatically happens. And it is stereoscopic. That is, our both nostrils don't smell the same thing at all. And that has been proven over and over with various experiments. And it is very common among mammals to have the keen sense of breath. However, some animals, like dogs, can refresh their breathing capacity at least 10 times a second. So do the rats. Whereas for humans, it's only about 2 to 3 seconds where our sense of smell get refreshed. However, we can, that is humans can, smell like a hound, but at a slower pace. Our breathing apparatus is an absolutely marvelous instrument for the body. When you think about at what temperature we breathe in air, for example, we might be breathing in at 25 degrees Celsius. So in order for the body to process them, first thing it has to do is to change the temperature of that air that's coming in. So we have in our nasal vestibule a temperature of 32.5 degrees, which filters the temperature of the air that's coming through. And we have a bunch of other instruments inside the nasal cavity. In particular, we have a whole bunch of bones, I'll talk about that in a second, that filters through more and raises the temperature. Ultimately, when it gets back inside our body through our lungs, it has to raise to a temperature of about 37 degrees. Imagine this whole process is a very complicated set of things that go on. For example, here's a cross section of our head through the nostril. You can see the yellow bits up at the top. That's mostly bony structure, but they are not solid bones, but they have holes in them. They're very much porous kind of bone, and that's where our sinuses reside. Again, unless things go wrong, we really do not understand how vital they are. When people say we have sinus problems, basically most of the time they are blockages of sinus because of cold, because of flu, because of all kinds of other problems in our nasal cavity. They all lead to various difficulties in our breathing apparatus. And only when that happens, then we realize that there is something wrong with our system. Broadly speaking, inside our nasal structure, there is a nasal concha or turbinate that actually filters through all our breathing in. So there are multiple thin scroll-shaped bony bits in the upper chamber of the nasal cavities that we have that allows for all of these things to happen. And what it does, because it has an increased surface area that allows whatever comes in gets rapid warming and at the same time gets humidified. Think of like a paved road. When you get sun hitting on them, it heats up, or when there is rain, it humidifies. That's the same kind of thing going on inside our nasal cavity. And this is a view of our nasal concha. As you can see, there are several bits to it. There is the supra part, the middle part, and the infra part of the concha. That's even here in slightly reddish and slightly bluish tints. And that's where all the filtration that I mentioned earlier happens. Now, there are a lot of yoga exercises that are geared towards our nostrils, nostril breathing in particular. It actually deals with all of these things when we do those. So for example, drinking water through your nose is one such thing that affects all of these and cleans them out.